In this video, we're going to give you guys a combat strategy that will extremely raise your chances on winning the Pentagon fight. Greetings, commanders, and welcome back to another Kiss of War video. My name is Eagle, and in this video, we are going to give you guys a strategy, a combat strategy that I personally call the moving turtle. Now, why am I calling it like this name? You would know from the video itself, but this strategy will help you significantly in every single war you fight because the whole reason behind this strategy is it will put you on the defensive. That means that the enemies will have to rally you and attack your towers and bases in order to actually take control of the territory. And in that case, they would be losing a hell lot of troops and you will not be losing a single troop. Now, why would this strategy significantly help you take over the Pentagon? Because it works best in these types of terrain over here, where you have to actually progress and take over a lot of territory in order to win the area over here. Because as you can see, there are 4 siege turrets and there's also the Pentagon itself. Once you control one of these siege turrets, you will be able to shoot to the Pentagon, the troops that are in the Pentagon, and this way you will be even putting more pressure on the enemies on this area. If not, being able to control the Pentagon itself and taking those sweet first occupation rewards for yourself and your guild as well. Now, this strategy works as a guild, like a solo guild, or as a whole server as well. It just requires a hell lot of coordination with each other, so it's extremely important for you guys to coordinate in order to do this strategy. Now, without further ado, let's start explaining what the moving turtle strategy is. Now, the name I just made up the name, but it makes perfect sense because the whole point of this strategy is that every single base that will be teleporting to this area and start building towers and expanding in this area once you control the isolation level 2 barriers has to be shielded. You have to have an active shield on that base. Because the reason being is that, for example, some of the enemies that are extremely strong, like the heavy spenders, 100 mil plus players, will just teleport their base over here and start attacking you immediately with tier 5s. If you are a small base like 15 to 30 million power, they can immediately zero you by swarming you with tier 5s, simply because they have a lot of tier 5s, they have spent a lot in the game, or simply because they have been there for a longer while. Now, this is basically the case, for example, with server 27. Server 27 is a server that has been there like 100 days older than us, and they have stronger officers simply than our server. We are server 39. So in 100 days, you theoretically or technically get more higher officer levels and therefore better in combat. Now, in order to avoid that, and in order to avoid any field fights or fights that will actually end up by you being zeroed or you losing a significant amount of troops, you apply this strategy. Now, the only way they can attack you is if they connected a tower to one of your towers and attack that specific tower. But let's say they're trying to build all the way from over here, all the way to over here. That would require a lot of time. Now, in order to utilize the building of towers so that you can actually build faster than your enemies, so what you have to do is teleport about 20 to 30 bases over here. Now, those bases, as we said, they must have active shields. So, and then you start building towers. Now, the way you can actually build towers in this area is of 2 factors. The first factor is the amount of troops that you're building the tower with, and it always has to be 2 million. The tower has to always be full. And the second thing is the amount of players or the number of players that are actually building that tower. Now, let's say you are 20 players that are trying to build that tower. Then that means that each member has to send 100k troops, which would basically fill up the tower. So 100k troops will reach 2 million, and this way you would be utilizing the tower building. The more members that can join, the better. So if you have 40 members teleporting over here, then each of them has to send 50k, and this way you would be building towers faster than any other server out there. Now, also, obviously, guild research does a huge, like, plays a huge factor, but this is assuming that you have already maxed out your guild research, or at least the territory research that has to do with tower construction speed. Now, once you have built towers and like occupied some territory in this area, so for example, let's say you occupied this territory over here, you would have a really good advantage. You just have to always keep building towers, like build towers in two realms over here, so that even if they reached with their towers to this area and started rallying your towers, what you have to do is only reinforce your towers. Now, if you don't know this, in the biozone, if a rally hits a tower or a construction or a guild structure, the 50% of the seriously wounded troops in that tower will go to the hospitals. However, 100% of the seriously wounded troops of the rally will be going to like die, basically. So playing it on the defensive, even as a weaker server, will significantly help you out, because this way you have at least 40 or 50 members over here reinforcing one tower, right, that has 2 million capacity. Now, the highest rally capacity is 2.4 million, which is, I think, lessened here in the biozone, and it's 2.2 million if you're using like a Chloe Ophelia combo. But then again, even if you're using that combo, you cannot really inflict as much damage as you're taking unless your troop types are significantly higher than the enemies, which is usually not the case, because usually what you'll be defending this tower with is like an Natalia Grace combo, which works perfect in defense, or even a Natalia Jessica combo also works pretty good. So once you're defending these towers with these combos are extremely solid, and you're only losing half of what the enemy losses are. So that means the enemy will always get a negative trade, and they can only rally you like a couple of times, because you're gonna be using gold to like obviously take the ignition out of the tower. And if one of the troops that are next to the tower is actually low, what you can do is take out that troop from the tower, and then another player reinforces that tower. So technically speaking, you can infinitely reinforce that tower, so that tower never actually burns. They can also do the same thing to the rally, but reinforcing a rally is much harder than reinforcing a tower, because you cannot simply just take one march out of the rally and then another march has to go in the rally. If a march dies in the rally, then that's the only time that you can actually reinforce a rally. But if a march doesn't die from a rally, then that means that if one troop is in that march or in that player, it's still considered as one player, and that player cannot actually reinforce the rally. So in short, you will be able to take all the resources from the enemies without having to actually lose a lot of resources and troops yourself. This strategy works best when the enemy is stronger than you. If the enemy is like, I would say, like at your level, you can still do some field fights and whatnot, and you can also try to play even more offensive if you have like more powerful players. But this strategy works perfect if the enemy is stronger than you. This way you would actually ensure that you are on the defensive and they are actually losing troops in trying to take out your towers one by one. You can also, the thing is, when you're trying to build twin towers over here, like 2 towers at a time, trying to expand in this area, they have to actually take out all the towers in this area in order to do so. And by doing so, they will be losing significant amount of troops. You'll be losing only half that amount. So you will not be losing a lot of troops. And you can always, as we said, if you feel like one of your marches is dying in there, you can put it out. You can have like a voice chat on Discord or whatever and say like, hey man, jump in the tower. And you would have like another base right next to that tower, and he will reinforce that tower, and basically the tower reinforcements will never die. Now, some tips about this strategy: always make sure that the top protecting, or the first, let's say, protecting officers of that tower are always defensive officers, like for example Grace and Natalia combo. Now these combos are extremely good against swarming, against rallies. Even if they try to rally that tower and swarm it at the same time, that would be a huge mistake, because Natalia Grace would inflict so much counterattack that it will simply delete them off the map. So basically, this combo is or this strategy is insanely good, and I highly recommend using it. As I said, if you're trying to take territory without wanting to lose any troops. So, and this also works perfectly if you're trying to like push in this area as well. Let's say this is the first season of SVS, of course. Let's say you wanted to push in this area and you feel like the enemies have already like depleted their resources. You can also use the same strategy to push in this area and put yourself on the defensive so that you can lose less troops. Now, if you have any questions about this strategy, you can leave me those questions in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions about it. If you like this strategy, please make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, your guild mates, your server mates. Make sure that you guys use this so that you can take over the Pentagon if you, of course, need to. And basically, that's it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. Thank you so much for watching, and we will definitely see you on the next one. As always, Eagle out.